All right, guys, we're back with the last episode of the Dynasty Rookie Rankings, tier number 4 here. Go check out our other episodes if you're interested. Talked about some of the other guys here and our thoughts on them. And this is where there's a pretty big tier gap, but these guys are interesting for fantasy football at the very least. I'm your host, Calvin Timms. Got my co-host, Dale, with me here tonight. So the next guy we're going to talk about, we're just going to wrap up these tight end rankings because I want to go on to the overall rankings. That sounds so much more fun. But we're going to talk about Tucker Kraft for number 5 for the tight ends. And Tucker Kraft, I like what I see when I watch him. He looks like a prototypical tight end. You know, he's a big dude. He just plays big, not very super athletic, but he plays for San Diego or South Dakota State. I saw SD. South Dakota State University here. 6'5", 255 pounds. Not a big conference whatsoever, so there's a red flag there. But production-wise, he hasn't been so bad. Only had 7 catches as a rookie for 90 yards. Not terrible. 13-yard average there, but did most of his work as a sophomore. He had 65 catches for 773 yards, 6 touchdowns. This last year, only 27 catches for 348 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think he's injured right now, if I do remember correctly, but I think that's one of the biggest downsides on him right now is he is injured. But he's someone that's interesting, right? And he's a later round shot for sure, but he's got a lot of talent. And when you watch him, he plays tough, right? And there's going to be teams in the NFL that love that absolutely love that. But, for fantasy football, it's going to be a long shot for him to break the top 24, even as a rookie. It really depends on landing spot, but I think he's going to come in and, he's 6'5", 255. So he's a big dude. He's bigger than most of the tight ends we've talked about so far. But I think that he's going to surprise people with his athleticism. I mean, I have no idea right now. It's pretty early. We're doing early rankings, but when I watch him, he does feel pretty athletic. And, he powers through a lot of plays. He's not afraid to use it, his size to his advantage. But I think he's currently injured, and that's a big red flag. So if he can't perform at the combine, that might really just tank his draft capital. So what are your thoughts on Tucker Kraft?
It's for Tucker Kraft. I'm looking, and it says he was injured, but he did. I think he may have come back for a further champion. It's for their championship game,
Okay,
and
great.
and that's and that's one they actually won, and they beat their rival North Dakota State. Um,
There you go.
fun fact. Tucker Kraft is a jackrabbit, which is another fun fact, and and that's the same school that Dallas Goddard went.
Okay, I knew
So
this
yeah,
school sounded familiar. I just could
yes,
not remember why.
yeah.
Okay.
So with Kraft, the year like he was injured, so like his stats this year are a little different, or
Mm-hmm.
aren't as good, but for last year, like I mean, he played in 15 games. He had 65 catches, almost 800 yards. I mean, I know the competition's different,
Mm-hmm.
but that does, like, for tight ends, I don't feel that matters a lot
Right.
personally, because they do a lot of different things than like a wide receiver, a quarterback would do, personally. So, I mean, the good things I see in him, he has really soft hands. I like he has a pretty big, well, and a frame he knows how to use, you
Yep.
know, which is good. So, um, which I like. But again, the problems with him, it's going to take him a long time to kind of develop into a serviceable tight end. I mean, he doesn't have any overwhelming speed or athleticism. He's kind of mid on those things,
Yeah.
but
Right.
but I can see him being serviceable and being a backup tight end somewhere, and really maybe making that next leap, and like even potentially being the next Dallas Goddard, even though Dallas Goddard was a second or third round pick.
Right.
I don't think he's
Second
going to
round
go
pick.
that high,
Yeah.
but yeah, he was a second round pick. So,
I only
I
remember this.
you know,
I only remember this because that was the year that Dallas needed a tight end. Dallas Goddard is named
yes,
after the Dallas
yes,
Cowboys, and the Eagles
yes.
jumped the Cowboys by one pick to draft Dallas Goddard.
Um,
Fun fact.
nope. That, that
Hilarious,
that is very
ironic fact.
that is a very fun fact for good old Jerry Jones. So
No, that's
so
I forgot that. Yeah, I was listening to some other people's like thoughts on these guys. Because I watched the clips
mm,
and everything, and just kind of trying to listen to people that are smarter than me, essentially.
yeah.
That are more tuned into the actual NFL draft. And they were talking. I forgot it was him specifically, but they were talking about him compared to Dallas Goddard, and that's going to be what everyone
mm,
compares him to. But Dallas Goddard is definitely the better prospect, just
yeah.
coming
Oh
out
yeah.
and everything. But Tucker Kraft is not that far behind, I don't believe.
Mm,
So we'll see what he can do. It does look like he's been healthy. He came back for the entire championship run, all 3 games.
mm,
So he's been healthy for a while. But, yeah, he only played – I mean, he played on 9-3, didn't come back until 10-22, played 3 weeks, and then didn't play again until for another month. So – he only
yeah.
had 4 regular season games for the team this year before the championship started. So really didn't have a ton of usage, but we'll see what he can do at the combine. And again, if he tests out really well, he might be able to solidify himself as like top 4 round pick, which wouldn't
Mm.
be too bad. So
No, it really wouldn't.
all right, any last thoughts on Tucker before we go on to the last guy we're going to talk
No.
about? All right, so tight ends are finally coming to an end. We're going to talk about a super senior here. The one scary thing is going to be Cameron Latu with Alabama. So this guy is very interesting. If I remember right, so this guy is one of the true positionless players in the NFL. He plays linebacker and he plays tight end. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting because you can see it when he does play tight end and he gets the ball. He kind of knows how to manipulate the linebackers in a unique way because he plays the position. Like he understands it a little bit better from that perspective. But that said, he really has only played as a tight end the last 2 years. I believe there was a couple injuries in there as well. So take a little bit of this with a grain of salt. Really only played for Alabama in 2021 and 2022. Had 56 catches in those 2 years for 787 yards, kind of similar to Darnell Washington, who we talked about in tier number 2 there. 12 touchdowns, so you do like to see that. He does have a nose for the end zone there. But again, the biggest thing for him is, one, I just already feel like he's a Patriot. Like, he can play linebacker and tight end. Like, and he's from Alabama. I mean, that's the Bill Belichick bingo sheet just automatically going off right there. But he's pretty talented. Like I said, when he gets the ball in his hands, he understands the defensive mindset, so he can manipulate those guys a little bit better. And he's a linebacker, so he's not afraid of contact whatsoever. And sorry, I don't know if I mentioned, but he's 6'5", 250. So he's a bit stockier than some of the other guys we talked about. But like he's not afraid to play through contact. And that's kind of one of the biggest things I've seen. When he blocks, he is a great run blocker. He just blows up off that ball into those defenders. And again, he understands that side of it too. So he kind of understands the rush and how to beat those guys. He knows what works against him. So he kind of does the counters to those guys. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes because, again, future Patriot, if he's a third-round pick or something like that, he's going to be – if you're an IDP player, boom, you got yourself an instant starter because he's probably – if he goes to the Patriots, he's going to play linebacker for us as well. Bill Belichick has been doing that crap all year with, I think it's Marcus Jones. Is that the guy? The amazing slot corner that we have?
Cornerback. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. That guy is so freaking fast, man. But, yeah, so Bill Belichick is going to put him in a linebacker. So he's going to get a lot of usage. And knowing Bill Belichick, he'll probably try and reward him with, tight end usage. But the nice thing is if he does go to the Patriots, which I'm predicting that already, I'm almost tempted to lock it in, put a money bet on it. But if he goes to the Patriots, they've got Hunter Henry, they've got Jonnu Smith. Jonnu's been worthless since we signed him, which is
Absolutely worthless.
depressing, incredibly depressing. I really like Jonnu Smith, but Hunter Henry's also getting a little bit older. I think he's got 1 year left after this year, so he's got 2 years left as of right now. Once we kick into next year, he'll be on second to last year of his contract. So there's a definite long-term need there. So something to kind of stash, and that's why I like Latu. What are your thoughts on him?
Eh. I'll be honest. Like I get a little worried when I would say I get super about players making position changes because it does happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, like all
and
the Florida
I
quarterbacks going to tight end.
exact. I mean, it does happen.
So you
It
mean,
does happen.
should we be worried
I
about
know.
Anthony Richardson?
I know what you're gonna say. I figured that was coming, but I'm not worried about it.
Future
I'm
tight end
worried if he's a
Anthony
good
Richardson.
quarterback or not. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked, but that's beside the point. But I mean, I can honestly see Latu being more of a defensive player than an actual tight end. I think he has more of the skills for it.
Mm-hmm.
I know you said he's a he plays violent, I guess you could say, but
Yes, he
yeah,
does.
and I feel that's a lot of his defensive nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he just he's very raw as a tight end. I understand some of the touchdowns are there, but like if you're playing with, if you're playing with Bryce Young, who is a good quarterback, he is a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's better than some people, but
Right.
he's very serviceable for that Alabama offense. He's gonna throw it to big guy, in the red zone. So, you know, um, I don't think Latu does anything special. I'm worried about him as a blocker because I feel he would. I feel he blocks too high and he gets overpowered at some points. So like he has to work on being a blocker. Um, you know, I think the one thing he does have going for him, he does have soft hands, which I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be good for the linebacker position. Um,
True.
just being honest, I really think he should just stick to playing linebacker. I know about probably about a decade ago, um, that's when like Miles Jack played running back at at like UCLA,
I forgot about
and
that.
yes, yeah. So like he was primarily like a linebacker, but because of team need, he played
Right.
he played running back. So that's I don't know if that was Latu's decision or if that was like Bill O'Brien coming in and seeing the sky and seeing that he could potentially be an
Yeah.
asset in there, but I don't know.
I will
Like,
say the one the one downside for him that we gotta give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, right? Because it's Alabama. They've got 5-star wide receivers out the ass, right? They're never worried about having
right,
5-star running backs, 5-star wide receivers. So the talent is definitely there everywhere on
yeah,
the roster, right? So I mean, you look at it as a junior, only 26 catches, but that was the same year as who all did they have that year? I mean, who was all drafted last year? I was trying to just remember. Oh,
Jameson Williams was there.
yeah, Jameson Williams, John Mechie, who was very, very good. And then Latu was the number 3 receiver that year. So Brian Robinson was out there catching some passes. So Billingsley, I think he was tight end, right?
Yeah,
And then this year, I mean, you've got our boy Jameer Gibbs just absolutely wrecking it. But it's pretty crazy the usage this year for the team just disappeared. They really didn't have, for Bama, they didn't really have that premier wide receiver like they normally
yeah,
do. But which was kind of odd. But there is just a lot of talent on Alabama, so don't want to completely bury Latu saying, oh, the guy can't
yeah.
really
I
do a
agree.
lot, but
I agree.
I hear what you're saying though. There's definitely some risk there that he might not even be a tight end
Hmm.
come draft season. So we'll see how it kind of
Yes.
goes. But again, he's someone that plays pretty well. He's crafty through the air. He kind of sets guys
Mhm.
up, and he's a good blocker. So I think that if he can probably propel his draft stock a little bit higher. And again, like you mentioned, he has soft hands. So just somebody to keep in mind as we start wrapping up this season, start going into the draft season and everything like that. So any last thoughts on Latu before we wrap this up?
I mean, I do agree with your point that I can see him definitely being a future Patriot, and
It's just too
I think
perfect, man.
it really is, and I think he's going to replace Matthew Slater.
That's not terrible.
No,
Special teams, yeah, it's not terrible.
it's really not. Like I can see him being a special teamer,
Mhm.
like a defensive player. He can play an offense when needed. And there's nothing wrong with that, but like for fantasy,
So he's the
that's a
next
big
Taysom
crapshoot.
Hill. All we need is
Basically,
him to start throwing
exactly like
touchdowns, throwing passes.
yes,
All
yes.
right, so that's gonna wrap up our rookie tight end rankings. Thank you guys for joining us for this. I know it's a little bit more of a slog than anything else, but it's these are names to know, and we're not
Absolutely.
super excited about them right now, but that doesn't mean we're right. And like Mark Andrews, people kind of like the talent on him, came from Indiana. Not a great college career, but the talent was definitely there. Now he's a top 2 Dynasty asset. So getting to know these guys' names early, even if they don't pan out, is just definitely worth it. You're staying one step ahead of your competition. So thank you guys for joining us. Dale, you got anything else to say before we wrap this one up?
Nope.
All right. So before we leave, again, thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at Dynasty_Dale. Like, comment, subscribe, follow whatever you're doing for the podcast. Make sure you leave us a review, anything you can to help us out. Leave us a thumbs up, double thumbs up. Leave a hate comment, a non-hate comment, whatever you want to do. Send us some love, whatever. Send us some trades that you're looking at this offseason. Would love to talk it over with you guys. I always love talking through trades, helping people out that way. But anything you guys need, we're here for you this whole offseason. So hit us up. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you guys later. Good night.